Do yourselves a favor, run to your nearest bookstore immediately, wipe all your other books off your TBR and escalate this one to first place if it was on your TBR. If it was not, add it, and then come back to this video and let's discuss what you thought about it, because I genuinely need more people to talk to about this book. It was incredible. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Just like that, another month gone. I cannot believe we are already April. Like, where does the time go? Honestly, I'm like, it's the beginning of a new month, so I wanted to go through all 7 books that I read in the month of March. I had a total of 4 5-star reads in 2024. I had read 75 books, only 4 of them were 5-star reads. Just this month alone, I had 2 5-star reads. 2! Which is insane. It was a really good month of reading because of those 2 books. Honestly, they are now some of my new favorite reads of all time. The first book that I read in the month of March was actually an audiobook. I had like a month free trial with Audible and I will not be renewing it. It was the second audiobook that I've ever listened to. If you guys saw my February recap video, then you know how I felt about the first audiobook that I listened to. It was definitely a much better experience. The first book was Unsteady by Peyton, Corinne. This is a new adult sports romance. The story basically follows Reese, who is a hockey captain battling PTSD after a severe concussion. And the story also follows Sadie, who is a figure skater who is struggling with financial struggles and a custody battle for her 2 younger brothers. They cross paths at the ice rink that they both skate at, and when they meet, they form an unexpected bond. They end up finding solace within each other while facing their personal demons. What I liked about this romance book is that it really was not strictly focusing on just the romance between the 2 characters. It really did dive into Sadie's family dynamic that she was struggling with, and then also with Reese's PTSD from the concussion that he suffered. I thought it was really like well-rounded in that sense, but unfortunately for me, the audiobook, the voice actors were just not it. They were just not it. It really warped this experience for me. I think I would have preferred this book a lot more had I read it physically in a book instead of listening to these voice actors acting it out. I've learned my lesson, I think, with audiobooks. I just don't think they're for me. Because of that, I rated this book a 2.25 star, which is not great, obviously, but alas, this was my lowest rated book of the month. The next 2 books that I read were the 3rd and 4th book in the Artifacts of Urano series. So I'm actually not going to dive into too much detail about these ones because I explained what the 3rd and 4th book are about. You're not going to understand because you didn't read the first one. I rated both of them a 3-star. I rated the whole series 3 stars basically. For me, this series was entertaining, definitely, but really not one of my favorites. I know it's pretty highly rated on Goodreads, and I'm gonna say I was a little bit shocked. I'm not gonna lie. Anything 3-star and up, I don't regret reading, but the series just felt a little trivial to me, to be honest. I felt like they encountered so many issues that were so quickly resolved, and it was just kind of like issue resolved, issue resolved, issue resolved, and like there weren't really issues that like lingered super long term. I don't know if that makes sense. My main beef with this series was that it was a lot of telling and not showing. It was a lot of like stage direction, I find, in my opinion, but I didn't feel super attached to any of the characters, nor did I feel super attached to the story because of that. For example, she would say how important someone was to a character, but I didn't feel that. Like, I didn't feel that with their interactions and their connection. So it lacked a little bit of depth for me, this series, but for a surface level fun world to dive into, I definitely think you should check it out and try it out for yourself. Like I said, some people really loved this series. I just think for me, again, it was a little bit trivial and lacked a little bit of depth with the characters and just overall plot. The next read was Dead Poets Society. I have actually never watched this movie, funny enough. I will be watching it now that I have read this book. The book basically follows a group of boys at Welton Academy, which is a private school for boys. All the boys are feeling a little bit lost, not too sure what they want to be doing with their lives, and in comes their new English teacher, Mr. Keating. The English teacher basically inspires these boys to resurrect the Dead Poets Society, where when these boys meet in their secret location, they are free from the constraints and the expectations of their school and parents. And essentially they let their passions run wild. They are reciting poetry, they are seizing the day, which is what Keating has inspired them to do. Carpe diem. But as the boys continue to meet and start to find their footing sharing in their freedom, obviously they run into some issues and they realize that with their freedom comes some consequences. And some of those consequences can be very tragic. The message of this book was really super important. The English teacher obviously is inspiring these kids to be individuals, to be free thinkers, and essentially not to conform and to become your own person and be your own individual and make your own choices about things for your life. And I absolutely love that message. Follow your dreams, pursue your dreams, all of that. It's a very inspiring message. Now, the execution, I'm not 100% on board with. I do think there was one very questionable scene written in here of sexual assault that I just don't think was completely necessary. I basically felt like this book was written about a movie, if that makes sense, which it was, but it feels like it was written that way. I definitely feel like there was a lot more potential for this and it just kind of fell flat. I still did rate it 3.5 out of 5 stars because, like I said, I think the messaging in this book is really important. Just think the execution was not 100% what it could have been. The next book was The Island of Missing Trees by Elif Shafak. This was such an unexpected read for me. This was actually our February book club read, but we met like beginning of March, so I had read it like the first week of March, so it's technically part of my March reads. I had not voted for this book when we had voted for it as a potential book club option, and I'm so happy that the other girls did and that it ended up winning because this book has easily become one of my favorites. So this is a historical fiction novel that basically follows Kostas and Defne, who are lovers from opposing sides of Cyprus's conflict. Defne is Turkish Muslim and Kostas is Christian Greek. And then the story also follows their daughter Ada, who is very curious about her family's history and past, but her parents are not very open about it at all with her. Part of the book is actually narrated by a fig tree, like a literal fig tree. This fig tree basically witnesses the love story between Kostas and Defne. That tree is basically they're experiencing their love and their loss, and the book is so incredibly poetically written, you guys. I have no words to explain how beautifully written this book is. You just have to take my word for it. I think it actually might be the most beautifully written and poetic book I have ever read in my entire life. The book obviously explores themes of love, but it also explores themes of trauma and identity. These themes are basically spread over different timelines throughout the book. So there's 3 different timelines that you follow throughout the story. The fact that I rated it 5 stars should be in itself an indication that this book is incredible. I had never read anything by this author Elif Shafak before, but now I am definitely going to be checking out her other books because wow. The next book that I read this month is another romance novel. It is by Ali Hazelwood, who I love. It was her book Not in Love. This book basically follows Rue, who is a biotech engineer, and it follows Eli, who works in private equity and basically owns the company that is trying to take over the company she works for. Despite them being on opposite sides of this beef and of this takeover, their undeniable attraction brings them together. I love Ali Hazelwood. She can do no wrong in my opinion. I find her books so freaking entertaining. She has her formula and it works. It was not my favorite Ali Hazelwood book, I will say that, but the chemistry between the 2 main love interests was undeniable. It was like flying off the page. I find Ali Hazelwood does such a good job at writing chemistry between characters. The story itself was very entertaining. It's never just the romance that we get into, like there's always other issues in Ali Hazelwood's books. So obviously in this case, it's the takeover of the company that Rue is working for. I honestly had a lot of fun with this one. I rated it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. If you're someone who likes romance and spice, I do suggest checking this one out. This is definitely one of her spicier books. It's definitely not like super spicy in my opinion, but there's definitely more spice than like her usual books. And then the last read of the month, which just so happens to be my absolute favorite read of the month and actually my new favorite standalone fantasy book of all time, is Blood Over Bright Haven by ML Wang. This is actually our book club read for the month of March. I'm meeting with the girls literally in a few days and I am so freaking excited to talk about this book, you guys. The person I was before going into this book and the person that I am now, not the same. I knew from the first chapter of this book that I was going to need resuscitation after finishing this book. I knew from the first chapter that this book was going to destroy me. I actually knew before going into the book. Don't ask me how I knew, I just knew. It was like my intuition warning me ahead of time that I was not going to be okay. This book is one of the most important reads probably that I've read in a long time. This book is basically a dark academia fantasy novel where knowledge is power, but power comes at a cost. The book takes place in this industrial utopia called called Tehran. Basically, it's a city that is powered by magic. Magic literally operates everything in this city, from lights to trains, everything. And this city is basically the only area in its surrounding areas that is protected from blight, which is this evil, blinding white light that basically ends up unraveling living things, so anything from animals to plants to humans, and ends up killing them in a horribly gruesome death. The story follows Sayona, who is a very gifted scholar. She's the first woman to become a high mage, which is like a magic researcher and innovator at this elite university. But as she continues her studies and as she develops her magic, she begins to uncover a secret knowledge that threatens to upend every foundation of her world. She's torn between loyalty, survival, and the pursuit of truth, and she has to end up deciding how far she's willing to go in order to claim her place in a system that is designed to keep her out. This book talks about some real heavy topics, you guys. I'm talking about power and corruption, social hierarchies and oppression, religion versus science, knowledge and its consequences, morality and ambition. So many very heavy topics that are so incredibly explored in a book that is only 430 pages. Wang is so incredibly talented. I don't know how she fit everything into this book. I don't know how she did it, honestly. The magic system in this book is unlike anything I've ever read before. It basically blends science and magic and puts it together. Think of a typewriter that is typing code basically, and that's how like magic comes out. It's honestly such a brilliantly thought out book. This book obviously is exploring themes that are very present in our society today, and is obviously exploring them in like a fictional world with fictional characters. But I kid you not, there were times I had to literally close the book, take a deep breath, and take a step back because the nail was being hit on the head a little too hard. Whew, my female rage. This is such an important read, and I honestly think everyone should pick this book up and read it for themselves. This was a 5-star read for me. Perfection in a book. This is hands down my absolute favorite standalone fantasy book of all time. Hit the first place mark by far, wiped all the other ones out across the board. There is not a day that has gone by where I've not thought about this book. I know this book is critiqued sometimes for being paced a little bit slowly. I personally disagree. If you are going to pick this book up, my one advice to you is be prepared. It is not the type of read that you want to go into if you're looking for a fantasy book to escape and have a little bit of fun with. It's not that kind of book. It's really not that kind of book. Do yourselves a favor, run to your nearest bookstore immediately, wipe all your other books off your TBR, and escalate this one to first place if it was on your TBR. If it was not, add it, and then come back to this video and let's discuss what you thought about it, because I genuinely need more people to talk to about this book. It was incredible. So that was my March wrap up for you guys. Those were the 7 books that I read this month. Let me know in the comments down below if you have read any of these books, and if you have, what you rated them. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up for me if you enjoyed it, and also don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below if you have not already, and join our fam here on YouTube. I love you guys so much, and I will see you very soon with another new video. Bye!